Some fairly shrewd English judges thought his technique was too imperfect to prosper to the same degree on English pitches. Here are his scores in the 1930 Test matches. 8, 131, 254, probably the finest innings he ever played. 1, 334, a new Test record. 14, 232, making a total of 974 runs at an average of 139. Let us have a glimpse of some of those innings.
And here are Ponsford and Boy Bradman to resume the Australian second innings. Here's Tilsley bowling to Boy Bradman.
Then came the fierce assault of body line, when England's fast bowlers, Larwood and Vose, bounced the ball at over 90 miles an hour in the general direction of the batsman's body, with a posse of close catchers posted on the leg side.
Cricket is like any other science. Let me explain. First, you have Bradman, an irremovable object. Then there was Larwood, an irresistible force. Now, it's a very simple rule of dynamics that when an irresistible force meets an irremovable object, well, something's apt to happen. But it was all much ado about nothing. For to echo the words of one far greater than I, the only thing they had to fear was fear itself.
Oldfield is now his partner, but the English players are very distressed when he is struck on the head, Larwood again being the unlucky bowler.
And Bertie Oldfield, the batsman nursing a fractured skull, wasn't all that ecstatic either. England were well satisfied when Bradman averaged only 56 in that acrimonious series. But Australian revenge came in 1934 on Bradman's second tour to England. This nuggety, very Australian young man with the eagle eye, perfect reflexes, and the appetite of a starveling for runs was the pride of all Australia through the Depression years and beyond.
Bradman and Ponsford in magnificent form shatter the hopes of the enormous Headingley crowd of getting cheap Australian wickets. Bradman has found his form at last. The score mounts rapidly with these two at the stumps, and here is Don's century. Bradman's 200. Bradman's 250. England are now in a deep depression, thanks to Bradman. Little man, you've had a busy day. Don's partnership with Ponsford is a record and leaves Australia in a winning position, 494 for 4. Well done, Bradman. England, what about it?
The crowd on the Sydney Hill loved him. And even the English, in a masochistic kind of way, took him to their hearts. On and on he went, through series after series, poor health and sound against pace and spin, and now with the added burden of captaincy. His presence at the crease added thousands to the gate takings. When he was out cheaply to the spinner, Clary Grimmett, in the Grimmett-Richardson testimonial match, Vic Richardson turned to the beaming bowler and said, "You've just cost us £1,000." And that may have been an understatement. On his third English tour in 1938, the mature Bradman was as commanding as ever, if a trifle less daring. At Trent Bridge, it was Stan McCabe who stole the show, playing one of 3 amazing test innings. This one amounted to 232. Against the bodyline attack, he hit a brave and risk-taking 187 not out at Sydney. 3 years later, at Johannesburg, his 189 not out was so fiercely struck that the South African captain appealed against the light in the interests of his fieldsman's safety as storm clouds blew over the ground. Now, this match at Nottingham seemed lost until McCabe took over. Of the last wicket stand of 77 with Fleetwood Smith, McCabe cut, hooked and drove 72 imperious runs, a display that had even his record-breaking captain agape with admiration. War was round the corner, and this, together with foot trouble, shortened McCabe's memorable career. But Bradman, despite further poor health and post-war indecision, marched on, plaguing pre-war and post-war adversaries alike. It was enough to make all Australia dance with relief.
Don's wicket was eventually captured by Edrich, who clean bowled him. But this, unfortunately, was not until Don had made 187.
He became the first non-Englishman to score 100 centuries.
Don Bradman achieved new heights of brilliance when, at the Sydney Cricket Ground, he prepared to give the old-timers something to think about in the match against India. The reason wasn't far to seek. Don Bradman was about to reach his 100th century in first-class cricket. Here's a sample of his effortless style and brilliant timing, not forgetting a spectacular 6 to the grandstand. Here's how Don put 99 on the scoreboard, and the atmosphere grows tense. The next fateful ball, but the crowd needn't worry. Don makes it in a single, and the whole ground goes wild. A century of brilliant centuries, a real tonic for Australians old and young, and another milestone in a great sporting career.
And then came his final English tour.
We are very glad indeed. In fact, I cannot tell you how delighted we are to be back in England once again. We're very anxious to get on shore and get on with the business.
A triumphant procession from spring to autumn 1948. Australia undefeated through the entire season. For Bradman, a stream of runs and victories, applause, admiration, and an ever-increasing sense of awe. And eventually, a knighthood.
As a cricketer, he was given a copy of Plum's book on Lords and a truly magnificent birthday cake.
Cricket has a mischievous habit of scripting ironies, and one was reserved for Don Bradman. In his final test match, needing only 4 runs to finish with a test total of 7,000 and an average of 100, he met a poignant fate.
Hollis bowling and Don playing perhaps his last test innings here. The second bowler, Googly, got him. Well, it isn't often you get a big hand when you make a duck, but this was different.
No more would bowlers be faced with this apparently insoluble problem. So must ancient Italy have felt when she heard of the death of Hannibal, wrote Robertson Glasgow in Wisdom. That perceptive writer referred to Bradman as a business cricketer. There are no funny stories about the Don, he wrote. No one ever laughed about Bradman. He was no laughing matter.